So when I finally made it to DC after 18 years of purgatory in Ohio, I was like a starving person who had never seen food before. My freshman year of college was epic, the best year of my life by far. I discovered Thai food and Doc Martens, and I learned that I was supposed to be really mad about the patriarchy, and I saw Nirvana play live, and every day I woke up and I thought to myself, okay, this is who I'm supposed to be. Thank God I finally made it, I'm here, and this is who I am. So you can imagine that when I went home for spring break, and my mom told me that there was no more money for college and I was gonna have to come home, I was devastated, the way that only someone who has glimpsed the promised land and been denied can be. So I moved home, and I spent that year working as a cashier at Walmart, taking classes at the local community college, and trying to adjust to a life that no longer contained Thai food or lattes. My mom suggested that I think of my time in DC as a year abroad. And I thought, well, maybe that's what it was. Maybe this is who I am. I'm someone who left for a minute, like on a vacation, and came back, and now I'm here, and it is what it is. But fortunately, that wasn't the case. Through some very fancy financial aid wrangling, the statute of limitations on which has hopefully expired, I made it back to DC at the beginning of what would have been my junior year. And I came back like a conquering hero returning from war. I was expecting like ticker tape parades and people bowing to me, and I was just giddy. But things have changed a lot. A year is a long, long time in college, and I was academically far behind from taking community college classes. My friends had all changed because college kids do that. And more importantly, I was poor, like hungry poor, like no money for the bus, so I had to walk. No money for my phone, it was always turned off. Ramen noodles every night, like poor. And so after 2 years of that, at the spring of what would have been my senior year, just as all my friends I'd started with were graduating to go work for .coms, I dropped out. And I got a job waiting tables at a bar called Murphy's of DC. And this was like, I thought what I needed at that time in my life was just a break. Just a chance to sort of collect myself, get my head above water, get my phone turned on, eat some protein. But to understand just how comforting it was for me to be there, you have to know that growing up, my dad was a career bartender, and my stepdad was a career alcoholic. So between the two of them, I spent more time in bars before I was like 13 than most people do before they're 30. And Murphy's, I knew who I was there. It was like coming home, and it was fabulous. I really enjoyed the perks of the service industry lifestyle, like money in my pocket every day after being poor, which was great. Unlimited access to booze for a 21-year-old, pretty good. Sleeping till noon, sleeping with my coworkers. I was totally on board with all of that. And after a few months, I kind of forgot where I had been headed in school, and I started to think, well, this is a pretty good life. Like, maybe this is what I'm supposed to do. Maybe this is who I am. And so it was one hot, sticky August night, after I'd been out with coworkers to like 2 or 3 or 8 bars. I wound up at this place in Cleveland Park called Club Soda. And we got into Club Soda by diving through the window when nobody was going by, because it was an after-hours club. And so I got in there, somehow got separated from my friends, ended up talking to this like super cute Irish guy. And as Club Soda started to die down, he told me that he knew about this other place called Sugars and asked me if I wanted to go. And I said, you know what? I've had 18 beers. No one knows who I am, and I don't know you. Of course. I will go with you to a place I've never heard of and not tell anyone what I'm doing. So we got in his car. And it quickly became clear that maybe wasn't my best idea, because I was so drunk I didn't notice that he was really, really drunk. We really shouldn't have been driving. But worse than that, he took me out of Cleveland Park, way across town, into what was at the time a very shady part of Shaw. It's like Trucks and Circle probably now. And not only that, but Sugars was not a bar or a club. It was a row house. And it was a row house that we paid $20 to get into. And when we got inside, it was like dark and hot and like stifling and really, really loud. And as my eyes adjusted to the light, I could see that everyone was doing drugs. Like, everyone's smoking weed, people are cutting lines on the table, money is changing hands, there's guys with guns, And not only that, but as I looked around, I could see that while there were very, very few women in the room, of the ones who were there, I was the only one whose clothing adequately covered her vagina. And while at that tender age in my life I had never seen pimps and prostitutes before, it turns out that, like pornography, you know it when you see it. And so by this time, despite how many beers I'd had, I was as sober as I have ever been in my life. And when my little Irish friend came back over and handed me a warm can of Bud Light, I was like, oh, you know what, thank you. And thank you for bringing me, this is great. But, oh, you know what, like, I'm so tired. And I think I'm just gonna like catch a cab and go home and I'll see you later. And he like cocked his head. He had these white boy 90s dreads that I thought were just, oh my God, so hot. And he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, oh, you know, it's not really the kind of neighborhood where you can get a cab on the street at this hour. And I don't think it's really safe for you to be walking around out there, so why don't you sit tight and I'll see you home later. And because it was the 90s and no one had cell phones, I really had no choice, and so I did. And I spent the rest of that night with my warm Bud Light in my hand, like a bird of prey on like high alert, you know, that whole fight or flight thing, and staring at the door because I just knew that there was going to be some kind of shootout or massacre and I was going to have to run for my life and I wanted to be ready. And I was also trying really hard not to make eye contact with anyone because I was equally afraid that someone was going to try to sell me drugs and I'd have to say no or co-opt me into a life of prostitution, and I really didn't want to do that either. But I had plenty of time to think about the choices in my life that had led me to this point, what I could have done differently, what I might do differently going forward, what my mom was going to think and how sad she was going to be and confused when she found out that I died in a crack house full of whores in a bad part of town in the middle of the night. And I said to myself, you know, Kara, like, is this who you're supposed to be? Is this really the Kara Farn experience? And, you know, we stayed there for a long time, but spoiler alert, I lived. The dread guy took me home, and it was already light out, and it was hot, and I was practically late for another shift at Murphy's. But I went, and I did my shift, and for the first time that night, I didn't go out drinking with my coworkers. I went home and thought about, you know, how I'd almost died. And I'd like to say that I kind of turned my life around and gave myself a to-do list and started checking things off, but the truth is you don't find out who you are overnight in your 20s. You know, it's an ongoing experience, and I'm still figuring it out, but what I did learn is that sometimes there are nights when you figure out who you definitely are not, and that's the realization I had the night I almost died in a crack/whorehouse.
Kara Farn, ladies and gentlemen.